Hi, I'm Jackie Smurden. This is Dunnock Studio on a grey, miserable day in the UK. So we're going to have a look at painting a lovely church in Cyprus. It's miserable and wet here in the UK. So today I'm going to paint a picture of a memory of Cyprus where we spent some time over Christmas. This beautiful chapel which was in Paphos, and I thought we'd have a little go at this today. So what I've done is I've transferred a drawing onto here. This photo will be available for you to do a screenshot or download, and I'll pop it on the screen now for you to do your screenshot. And I've also popped in the updates on YouTube. No idea if you can see those, so I thought I'd just do a screenshot as well. And it's quite a gloomy sky, as you can see. Beautiful, brilliant blue on the church. So I've done a little bit of swatching, and you can clearly see that the blues here are way too turquoise, whereas the beautiful cobalt blue here is pretty good. I like that. It looks like a jewel. And then we've got raw sienna down here, and out of those two colours we've mixed some greys and greens and all sorts of things like that. If I go back to a colour wheel, so my first colour is a cobalt blue, which is sort of a mid blue really, so somewhere around here. And if you pop across the other side of the watercolour wheel, you've got an orange, and just next to that is a yellow orange, which is raw sienna. So I'm going to attempt to paint this picture with just two colours, cobalt blue and raw sienna. Most of you will have those. If you haven't got those, just use a nice mid blue and a nice warm yellow and see if you can get similar effects. So first of all I'm going to do the sky, and in order to do that I'm going to make a little mix of the cobalt blue and then pop that into my palette. However, if I just use the cobalt blue, even if it's a thinner, more watery version, it's going to be exactly the same colour as the roof there, and it isn't. It's different. It's greyed down. So going back to the colour wheel, if you take a complementary colour, here's the blue, opposite the blue is orange, next to that is yellow orange. So it's not directly opposite, it's an off complement, it's just slightly off that complement that's across there. So we're going to mix into this blue a little bit at a time, keep washing in between, keep my brush clean, a little bit of the raw sienna. I'll just pop that in the bottom here. Hopefully you can see that. So if I just pull that into the blue, you get a little bit of green going on, as you can see. So pull more blue in, and we should get a slightly greyed down version of the blue. So I'll just pop it down here. See how much greyer that is to the original cobalt blue. So that's what I'm aiming for. I've got a lot of sky here, so I'm just going to mix up a much bigger puddle. So I have a bigger puddle now, which hopefully will last me through. Getting a big lovely mop brush here, which is just like a round with a bigger belly, so it holds more water. And I'm just going to dampen down the sky, not worrying about the tree line, the mountains, etc. They can be covered as well if it leaks over there. What I am trying to protect is the sides of the building and the roof. This might not be perfect, and I might miss some bits, but this is our first wash. So first washes are very delicate and soft. So we don't want lots of rich colour, we just want a nice pale wash in the background. I could have reserved some highlights. There's a cross on the top of the church here. I could have done that, but it would be a little bit cut out, and the feature isn't the cross, it's the whole building. and the colour and the contrast in light and shadow. So I've got a nice damp wash there. I'm going to again just drop that over into this area where the hills and the trees are. Just let that settle. I can see from the side that it's evenly covered. Just popping back to the photo, the eagle-eyed in you may have noticed that I completely ignored the car here, and I've also ignored the ugly fence and made up my own. I've put some shrubs in that are leading to this corner tree that are going back to this area here. So please, please, please don't exactly copy photos. Just if there's something you don't like, take it out. I was there, so I know that this tree is actually a big stump that's been blown sideways over the years, probably a very long time. So all of these branches are growing out sideways. It's a twisted, gnarled tree, very beautiful. Whereas on a photograph, it really just looks like a lump of strange nothingness. So sometimes it's really useful if you have got your own photos and you were in the place, because you can get an idea of what you need to try and capture. So that's settling now. I have got a little bit of a puddle over here. So for that area, I would just try and take the water off a little bit, because I don't want it to be too wet. This is Arche paper. It's a cold press paper, 300 GSM, £150. I don't usually use this paper. It's got quite a tooth, quite a texture, so it'll be interesting to see what this is like. So I'm now picking up my greyed down blue. Let's just see. Oh, look at that. So this is a grey blue, not a bluey yellow, if that makes sense. I've greyed down the blue so that the blue is not quite as strong as straight out of the tube. So let's just pop that on. I may not quite have got enough on here. Let's just pop some around the building. Just got to try get the effect of a interesting sky. I'm not painting clouds. Don't try and paint clouds, just paint random shapes, and always go across the whole page as if the cloud is this big, not this big. That will help you to make realistic skies. Try and vignette the corners. You don't want lots of white on the corners. The rest of it is going to do its own thing, start merging and spreading. So that's really quite nice. I'm liking that. I'm pulling a little bit more of that blue, just a fraction, just to drop this down over these tree areas. See, these washes can go over more than you think. And on this area here, this area is not damp, so it will take more paint. So we've sort of already really brought the church out. I'm not sure if it's a church or a chapel. If you know, please do drop a comment. I'm also planning to do some more videos on different types of art media, and I think drawing might be a good one, because when you're doing watercolour you do tend to do a lot of drawing. So if there's anything you would like me to draw so you could start to learn how to get your head around drawing, please drop a comment below. So now just dropping in some raw sienna. I've still got a little bit of that blue on my brush, so it's slightly dulled down the raw sienna, and just dragging the side of the brush. This is where this paper works really well. You can probably see there's a little bit of dry brushing going on here. Dry brushing is dragging the paint sideways across the tooth of the paper, so it just pulls it and leaves some little gaps. So where you get some little areas of highlight, depending on how you feel about them, just leave them. And if you don't like them, paint over them. And I've just seen a naughty area here where I need some landscape behind. See how these big brushes can still go to really, really fine points. Takes a bit of getting used to, but quite nice. So I've got the building. If I was painting the normal building, and I would probably have done the whole building this colour, raw sienna, but this is very distinctly white, so I probably am going to try and do it white. I wouldn't normally, I'd have some colour in there, but we've got white, 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 but we have got shadow areas here, and how are we going to sort those out? So for the sky, we greyed down the blue by adding a little bit of raw sienna. Now this is still damp. We could try now to bring in some slightly stronger colour in the same format as before, and start off with raw sienna, and we want this one to be quite similar in the fact that it's bluey and grey. So that's a little bit too green. You can probably see that's a greeny grey. So just going to grab some more Cobalt. Not very organised with my palettes, I have to say. Right, switch to a different brush. So I've got a greeny area here. Let's go and pop that blue in. I want it to be more bluey. This is the background hills. And the paint and the paper are still quite damp here. So let's just see what happens if I drop that. So it still moves away, but what I've got here is way, way too wet. So we've got to mix this up into a drier mix, and you very quickly start realising you need to be more generous with your paints. That's again very green. I'm going to pop some of that over there. Pick up some raw sienna. So that's even greener. And then pop in some more blue into this side. So now we've gone bluer. Let's see what that looks like for the hill. It's a little bit wet still, but the hill in the distance would not have a harsh edge because it's way in the distance. So let's just put some little suggestions of spaces and things in the background there. So it's just bleeding into the sky, but I don't mind that. If you think your blue's too bright, just pop a tiny bit of raw sienna back into it. That's the complement again, or off complement. Let's put these trees in, see how they go. So this is wet in wet. We've still got damp paper behind here, and we're adding more pigment and letting it bleed away. There you go, that's quite nice, quite like that. Again, this is still our first wash, so it's quite soft and gentle. You get more texture with this paper, and sometimes that's not what you want, so you will decide whether you like this paper or not. I'm still unconvinced. I'm not sure about it. It's 100% cotton. A lot of people swear by it. It's a little bit harder to manage, so if you haven't got it and you think you'd struggle, please stick to your normal cold press paper, whatever that may be. You can still do exactly the same colour mixes. It is creating some nice textures in the sky, but I will get the hairdryer on it just because of speed. So everybody, you'll have to excuse me if I'm sounding a bit strange now. I've got a bit of a cold, and whilst this was drying I noticed a couple of little things that I'd missed. One, a dome here, which the eagle-eyed of you would maybe spotted that was on top of here, which was completely missing from my drawing, and also that the angle on this wasn't good enough. Now you can see I'm not an architect, this is not a perfect drawing, and I never ever want to be able to draw like that. It's not what art is about, but my roof just looked a little bit wrong, and that's why sometimes drying time, stepping away and doing it in stages is really useful, because you see the obvious, like you completely missed a blue dome. So just to make sure I don't forget it's there, I'm just going to pop in that little drop of bright blue colour, which is cobalt blue. And this is a beautiful colour. This particular one is a Winsor & Newton Professional. But anything you've got that's cobalt will probably be, would well be a synthetic, because it's very, very expensive pigment. But you can see why it's a nice colour. It's just fabulous. It's not something I'd use for a UK sky, because it's extremely bright, but just by popping this colour on you start to bring this building to life, because after all it's the blue on the chapel that first attracted me to taking a photo with a view to doing a painting maybe. And let's try and get that blue. I'm not worried about copying the colour exactly, and we're only using 2 colours on this painting, just to prove that if you mix your colours you can do very simple colour mixes and create very harmonious pictures, because the colours are not fighting with each other. I'm not going to add a sudden different colour in. And there we go, let's just pop that in. You can see the water just pooling even over there. Just let that just pop that in. Again, I'm using the point of my smaller round brush here just to get that up to that pencil line. Can really be too accurate about this, try not to overthink it. The crosses aren't blue, but there is a blue door, so I'm going to pop him in. He's just here. The other door is behind that little tree, and you really can't see the door itself in the painting, sorry, in the photograph. It's just probably open. Thinking back, it was probably open, and there's a little bit of shadow behind that tree, so we'll have a look at that later, but it's not a feature, so I'm not going to do any detail there. So we have 3 areas of blue. Let me just double check my picture, make sure I haven't missed any. I'm pretty sure that's all the blue now. And that works quite well, because you've got the 3 points that are almost creating a triangle in your painting just by the blocks of colour. Just adding a little bit more raw sienna to that blue, and not the far trees, just the trees that are nearer. We can go back in and do more layers, so it doesn't have to be perfect. But this is where the trees are growing next to the building. These are dull greens, and that's exactly fine. I don't want this to be a bright green picture. The trees in the pictures were actually in their winter sort of dress, if you like. Oh, and I just need to show you here, I've got some blooms that have happened with the water running down into this area when I put the hill second wash over the hill. So I'm actually going to use that later. There's a nice sort of rough line here in a bloom, cauliflower, whatever you want to call it. This is still quite bluey, this green, so again I could perhaps just try and do some dry brush work. There we go, up into those tree areas here, just to give it a little bit more depth there. Just using the point of the brush to suggest some sort of growth trees, something or other. Might want to strengthen the hill. Come back to that in a minute. Just going to make sure I keep this line nice and crisp around the roof there. So what have we got here? Let's do some negative painting. So I'm going underneath where I put some little trees, using the blooms that I've created there. Then I'm going to miss and then come on the other side. So I've left an area which is a bit like a trunk. It'll start to show a little bit more as I go along. Under here is some sort of shrubbery, which again, I'm going to follow what it suggested itself to be, and leave another tree trunk. Oops, and I completely went over the middle of it. So there you go, it's easy to just dab that off again. No damage done. You can always take off what you put on. Trying to leave that this time. Following my lovely bloom along the bottom here, which is all random shapes. Just coming up along here. And we've got another tree just here, which in my original drawing is separate to the foliage that's on this, like shrubs in the foreground, but I'm going to now change that because I like it. So the tree has come forward slightly and the shrubbery is continuing around it. It's all quite random. So just to soften the edges in between here, all I did there was just dampen my brush, clean it a little bit and just dab it on a towel. That's softening away because this is background behind the trees, it's not the foliage itself. The foliage is this bit. I'm just taking that off away behind the trees. At this point I can add a tiny touch more blue, so I can keep moving this colour any direction I like, back to the sort of the yellowy or back to the blue. Just keep going with it really. So let's add a little bit more blue and a little bit more blue. So that is because I now want to just reinstate this hill. There, that's better. So I've got a bluey green. Blue is cooler than green. So if you make a blue green, you're pushing that colour backwards in the picture. Or we're pretending that this piece of paper is a view, aren't we? And it isn't, it's a flat piece of paper. So I'm now using this blue to create the hills, which I did go over once before, and that's a nice soft edge there, but it just wasn't quite enough. And at the same time I'm leaving little gaps that suggest all sorts of things on the hill. And I'm also negatively painting around these trees in the foreground. Not too much detail in the very background. When you get to this bit, if you want to, you can just do some little square long lines to suggest there's buildings here, things on the hill, who knows. That's quite enough of that. Negatively paint around that tree. And then we've got this hill over here, so we can't forget that side. Pulling that in next to the building again, making sure that the edges are crisp. There we go. Get the idea? This is a much softer grayer blue than this one, because this is in the foreground and this is way in the background. I've left the trees for now, but we've painted around them so they've popped out a little bit. I can use what's left on my brush if I want to just put a few more details on whatever's here, which is some sort of growth trees, whatever they are, we don't know. Right, so that's all very nice like that. So we're going to put some greenery here and where the trees and this shrub area is. And to warm up the green, you need to add yellow. So going back to the raw sienna, pop that in the bottom there. A couple of drops of water. I'm using a pipette, but you don't need to. A little bit more blue. So it's now gone quite olivey green. Let's add a little bit more yellow. Yellow warms it up. Let's see what that looks like on this tree. Yep, that's quite nice. Definitely got a nice olivey green there, which is a muted down green. This is a tree that's growing. Let's do some dry brush on there. Tree that's growing in wild conditions. There we go, very rough. Got some splatter going off of there somewhere as well. So how would I do the trunk? Well, you could play around and add greys and browns and all sorts of things. I just need to suggest the trunk, but I also have a doorway behind, so I'll come back to that in a minute. Going to add a little bit more yellow, a little bit more blue, raw sienna being my yellow. This area here, which is shrubbery, see that's a little bit warmer again, is now going to get some attention. Again, use the side of your brush to, this is where the paper is really good, because you get these just textured marks just pop out of nowhere really. Now I've got to be aware here, my blue door is still wet because I've been impatient. So if I touch that blue, it's going to run straight into this green. So I'll just leave that for now. I'll just leave a little gap, which we'll come back to. Then I've got a nice rough top edge to that. Now I'm going to just run along the bottom here with that green, let it run back up. Can you see how it's running back up into the bit we've just done, because that's damp? Just put some sort of basic depth to these pieces of shrub, hedge, whatever they are, and then just let it flow, do its own thing. That looks quite nice. Right, let's have a look at the trees. I've got some raw sienna with a little bit of the blue, because the trees have already got blue behind them. Let's just see what that looks like. So it's more of the raw sienna. Brush is a little bit heavy with water. Let's have these trees touching slightly there. This one's out on his own. Just using the side of my brush. I'm not painting tree branches and stuff. These are tiny trees, they're in the background. That's nice, and liking this. Some rough tree shapes. And then with that same bit in my brush, just moving back over to the original bluey green we had, mixing them into my brush. So I've now just changed the colour slightly, and we've got this area here which is again different, so I'm not covering up all the background. There we go, it's probably enough actually, but just to show you, if you pick up raw sienna, which is basically a yellow, and pop it into a drying wash, it will push most colours away. Yellow's really strange like that. It's quite a nice thing to try. Drop it into a drying wash and it will sometimes push colours so strongly out the way they literally shoot across the page. So I'm just spreading that colour. Now that's raw sienna again, so bearing in mind we're not using more than 2 colours here. We've got a nice variety going on, haven't we? Side of the brush, that's raw sienna that's on my brush. Let's add some interest to this foreground. Use the paper texture. Stop before you overdo it. I've also got a tree right over here that's sort of in the foreground, so I'm just going to drop that raw sienna, quite dry brush over the top of the blue, just so he comes forward. Because he's a little bit warmer colour, it will appear to be nearer to you. It's just an illusion. And then we drop some, we could have done this earlier, could just drop some of the sienna into this tree area. that's probably quite enough. Meanwhile, the roofs are still drying. Because it's cotton paper, that's the hardest thing you'll find if you're not used to it, is that the paint sits there for a lot longer, still drying, because the paper is holding the water. And the benefit of that is that you've got longer to work. The negative to that, if you're a beginner, is you go back in, because you're impatient like I am, you go back in and then you can't actually do anything because you just create mud. So be patient, use a hairdryer or a heat gun if you wish, but if you can wait, you'll get much better results. I'm going to add the windows now, and you can see that all of the windows are in shadow. None of them are white or shining out or sticking out, apart from that sill underneath, which you can just see there. So what I'm going to do is do a shade over all of them, then go back in and do another layer of shade on the darker area. One of the disadvantages of a two-colour watercolour is if your colours are quite pale and this blue is not a strong dark blue, you're never going to get really dark, but then try not to copy the photo. You don't want a really dark anywhere, because that's just a photograph, and in watercolour it looks too heavy. So I've got this nice grey here, which I've mixed from our two colours. So each window I'm just going to pop one layer of that into the area of the window and let that, hoping that's not too dark, that one, just let that dry. Now if you think it's a bit too dark, once you put it on, it will dry paler, but if you want to, just lift it off again. So if you're thinking it's too dark, just take some of your colour, pop it somewhere else, and just add maybe a drop more water. That's all it needs to thin it out. Then try that layer again. That's better, isn't it? Doesn't take lots to adjust the depth of the colour. Now if it dries too pale, then it's fine, you can add another layer on top. If you ends up drying really heavy and dark, it just flattens everything. It doesn't look right, it doesn't look very nice. Watercolours are all about transparency, looseness if you can. So let's pop these beginnings of the windows in. Immediately, can you see the difference in the picture? It's starting to come to life, isn't it? Now, you might have noticed that this area here is in shadow. It's next to the blue door, so I'm going to pop that in, but we haven't finished with these areas yet. So yeah, that's looking really, really nice. Whilst I'm here, I'm going to try and guess where the door is. Quite hard because it's right in here, this doorway behind the trees. So guess what, we're negatively painting a tree using the door now. You can't see most of the door because it's behind the tree. It's not a feature. If we were doing the entrance to this chapel, it would be a feature, and we'd have to rethink how we showed that, but it's not. So it's just behind this tree. So I'm just suggesting that. Then I'm going to warm up the colour on my brush just by mixing it back into some of the sienna, and then positively paint some of the tree. And here is where you need it to be slightly different to the background, which we've just decided is a door, and have it coming across. Just running out of paint slightly there, so let's just pick up some more. So pulling that down into the base here. This is just like stubby bits of old tree, knobbly, gnarly bits. I'm just going to grab my rigger. It's a bit early for details, but there's nothing else going to be painted under here. I'm just going to pick up some of that greeny grey and just dance the brush around. I've got some pencil marks here, but I don't need to follow them. This tree has been pushed by the wind coming off the sea probably for a long time. Just want to suggest there's a tree that's bent over and just literally blowing in the wind, so it's stunted, and that'll do. Down here there's some little pebbles and things, sorry, not pebbles, rocks that are surrounding this tree, so we could use the rigger whilst we've got the colour on the brush just to help suggest the rocks, the forms that are around there. I'm using the details off the photo. It's got it's set up on almost like a plant platform of some sort, so I'm just using that whilst I've got it. Don't copy, just do a rough idea of what they look like. That's probably enough, and that stands out really well against there. We've lost a little bit of depth on where the tree and the door are, but I'm not really worried about that because the door, you can't really see the door through here. It's just, we're just suggesting there's something going on that side of the church. So let's stop there before I overdo it. We've got a couple of crosses, so whilst this paint is on my brush and it's not too heavy, this one we've got a nice little bit of white that's managed to stay, surprisingly. So as long as I leave some of that white on one side, which is over here, we should get the effect just about. Not going to overdo this. It's just a hint of, there we go, that will do. It's just a hint. There's a tiny one down here. And then we've got some sort of thing here sticking out of this area. And then over here there's probably lights, aren't they? So we could just jiggle them in. Again, don't draw a light, don't paint the exact replica of a light. Nobody can see this. This is in the distance, sort of merging into the wall really. So just hint that they're there. This one goes behind the tree, so it's not really even worth putting it in, but we will. There we go. Just, that's probably it. The rigger is also very good for adding that little tiny bit of shadow under each window. This is not easy to get this right, so please don't worry about it if it's not perfect. You can't really see it on this shadow one, but I'll pop it in anyway. This one, it's a bit more obvious. That's sort of the key one really. And then there's a couple here, and that's pretty much that done. A little bit more of that shade colour because this area here has also got rocks in front of it, and we don't want them all to just disappear. I am missing things today, so clearly not working on 100%. It must be Storm Goretti that completely threw me last night. I was worrying about my son-in-law getting home safely, and luckily he did. Families, eh? Always worrying about them. Doesn't matter how old you are. This is why you all need art. Keep you sane whilst you deal with life's tribulations. There we go. Whilst I'm waiting for this area to dry, I'm just now looking back into this and thinking I need these negatively painted trees to stand out more than they currently do. So there we go. I've just got a bluey grey mix of our original mix just going in there. See, it's another layer, so it's already going to start giving you depth because we've already been over this once. So just by going back in, you can leave some gaps in between. Don't cover everything up, but when you get to the tree area, again, where the branch, the trunk is, then just be a little bit more obvious about where your brush marks go. That is a hard edge because you're trying to show a tree. That's better. That's beginning to pop out a little bit. It's just because this picture I've sort of pushed everything to one side, as you probably noticed, and I'm feeling it needs to be just balanced off a little bit with these trees. Also got some little marks here which I can paint around to suggest something going on with fences and stuff that I literally ignored earlier because they're just not very nice to paint and they don't really help the composition, but I can sort of paint round things to show little posts sticking up here and there, which will just help make it a little bit more interesting. So again, I'm just coming in, negatively painting just where I think there would be a branch or two. Doesn't have to be a proper tree painting. Is this a painting about trees? No. This is a painting about a church. There we go, I've just left a few things sitting there which suggests something else in the picture. I'm just going to dampen that edge, soften that away a little bit, so we don't need hard edges anywhere, apart from where the trees are. That's a little bit too much there. Off. So you can take them off again. And you probably notice this little line here. All I've done there, it's got a slightly different angle brush or any stiff brush squeezed out with water, and then just pop in there and lift out yourself a fence post if you want one, just for a little bit of interest to suggest something else. That's probably well too much, but there we go. Okay, so I got distracted slightly there because I thought, no, that's not good enough. Haven't got much light on there. Haven't really got much light on it in the photo either. I haven't emphasised any of these white buildings here because my painting is about the church. So I've just made that a little bit more defined, made the trees pop out a little bit, so I'm quite happy with that. So on to this. So shadows, interesting one. You may have learned different ways of mixing shadow colours. To be honest with you, it's absolutely up to you which colours you use. I could paint all these shadows in a completely different colour, but it really wouldn't work with a painting. They've got to be tonally darker, less value, sort of a low value compared with the roof. You can see the difference quite obviously. If you find it hard to see tones, print off the picture or turn it into black and white on your phone, and that will help you see what's dark and light. But this painting is so easy from that point of view because it's very obvious what's light and what's dark. The blue is much darker than the white is here, but the grey not so much. If you squint, you can see that's very dark. That's in between the two. So if that was a 10, that was like a 8 or a 9, that would be maybe 4, maybe possibly. The ones around here are a bit darker, so we're not trying to capture that exactly. We're just going to put in what you call shade planes. Wherever there's a shade plane, it will help you to define the form of a building or anything else for that matter. So let's see if we can do this. Going back to a slightly bigger brush, I might regret it. Again, be prepared to adjust if you find that when you start putting your colour on. So all I've done is stuck to the same two colours here. I've kept it on the bluer side rather than the greeny side. You can see that's more of like this colour here. But it is a shadow, it's not a lump of something. It's a shadow on the building. So I'll take the most complicated one first, which is this one. The shadow is down this side, then it sweeps around underneath that top rill, and then you've got a defined line there and a lot softer there. So let's see if we can do that. So we're going in, spreading that out as we go. As soon as we get to about here, we end up with a white line of the building carrying on. And then it already gets very, very tricky because it goes very narrow, but I'm going to go with my wobbly hand all the way across with that big brush, just to show you can do it. Taking this all the way over that window. Try and get that nice curve there, which is showing the form of the building, and along under here. Keeping your brush strokes quite light. As soon as you get to this phase, you need to soften an edge to take that paint away softly across that line. So might be a little bit overdone because I've got a very wet brush here. I'm just taking it over. So what happens if we've put too much on? You know this already. You take it off again. Just gently. Yep, okay. What do you think? A little bit heavy on the shadow, maybe? Maybe it is. Just take off some of that there. And then, as with all these things, stop before you ruin it. So we've got a huge shadow plane all the way down this side of the building, all the way. It goes right round to the next building here. So if we take the whole of that, and the whole of that is one shadow plane. There's a little bit of light here that's confusingly behind that tree, so we're going to ignore that. Make life simple, eh? So a little bit more, just a drop of water just to keep it moving, because watercolours dry out as you use them, don't forget. So I'm popping that in, sweeping that round, keep that line on the roof nice and clean. Drop down, feel free to leave a couple of highlights around the tree if you wish, because the tree is catching light. If while you're watching this you think, oh, I wish I could use my colours, then of course do what you want to do. This is your painting, not mine. If you think, I think it'd look better if I use this and this, then go for it. All I'm doing today is to show you how I would go about painting a scene like this, so you can do it your own way. And so I'm just popping in that shadow. We're coming right around the corner here. This whole side of this roof is in shade. Can you see the building starting to appear now? And guess what? We're still using just two colours. Hope you feel pleased with yourself. So it's a something that some people never learn to do. They have to use all the colours, and there's nothing wrong with all the colours, but if you can learn how to do them without using everything in your paint box, you'll end up understanding colours so much more, and you'll get more out of them. This is a tricky bit here, and it's not quite accurate to the building, so I'm now seeing where bits match up to the picture and the painting. But you know what, that's what a painting is. A painting, it's not a photograph, so I'm not actually worrying about those. I'm going to try with my big brush again to go across. Look, oh, I'm being brave, I'm wobbling. If I can do it, everybody can do it. So there is a shadow in there, which is going off of a funny angle. Trust it. When you think something just looks wrong, just keep going. It will work. You can see these areas are drying much lighter than the area I've just put on. So if you think it's a bit strong, don't panic. So we've got one here that's quite a strong line, which we should probably have put on earlier because it's like a actual part of the building, but that's fine. Now just add a little bit because that shadow's slightly paler, so I'm just adding 2 drops of water. There's no right or wrong amount of water to add because it depends on what you are using, how much paint and pigment you've got there, so please don't try and copy exact drops. Just make it slightly thinner. See how that's not quite as dark as there, because this shadow isn't quite as strong. You could do this painting in black and white. Oh my goodness, I just mentioned the word white. Well, if you're using watercolour, you could use the paper to create the white, of course. And if you do this and you get a piece wrong, please don't forget that Turner used to use white. So if you do get a bit wrong, don't feel that you failed, because Turner added white on top of all his watercolours. Well, all his watercolours, quite a few of them. So now just following around this building here, I had a bit of a panic there, thinking I'd done the wrong side, which does happen. You'll think, oh no, got that wrong. Keep going. Try and keep your shadow wash nice and damp all the way you're doing it. Down to those bushes again, you can leave some little highlights because the bushes are in front of the building. There we go. It's not quite right on that corner there, I really don't mind. Just balance it up like that. So rigger time for a couple of lines that I can see. Where are we? That one. So just following that round with a rigger. Again, we could have added these before the shadow wash because they're part of the building really. It's not accurate by any means, but it's as accurate as I need it to be. Might get a bloom there because I dropped that into a drying wash, but let's see what happens. Happy accidents can lead to wonderful things, and sometimes they can lead to you going, no! But it doesn't matter, does it? There's some sort of shadowy thing going on here. Probably an air vent. Right. Some sort of area here because that's again part of the building. Just need dab a line here and there just to suggest if you've got structure, pop it in. Okay, that went better than expected. Now I am going to just show you a little technique. There's on this piece here, you can see it's like some sort of vent, and maybe it's where the water runs off that flat roof, and it's just got a stain down the wall. So I've got a nice puddle of paint here and a damp, slightly squeezed out brush. I'm going to just pull that out down the wall to create the same sort of effect as if that wall is running with some water sometimes, because while I was out there in Cyprus, yes, it rained. Had a good old rain. That is too harsh, that line, so I'm just merging those into one. Quick review, got a little bit of run back from that one. Always a big bloom on that one, can you see that? Let me just show you. So this one ran into a drying wash here. So I've got a big bloom there, which isn't great, but it's not the end of the world. If I really don't like it, I can just gently soften it out. Like so. The ideal thing to do would have been to let both sides dry before working anywhere near each other, but it has given it a little bit of texture, I think, which is quite nice. So what's left to do? Inside these windows there is two tones of dark, the very deep inner space and the side of the window. So now going back to the original wash and my fairly small round, without going too dark. If I go too dark, I'm going to ruin it. So here we go, let's see if this works. So roughly getting the shape in there. Now if this is done too soon, this will run into this wash here. So wish me luck, because I'm way too soon. Just using the point of my brush. So that one's bled a little bit. This one will be fine because it's next to white and we haven't put anything there. Probably redefine the base of that sill. This one, can you see how it's giving it depth? It looks like it's 3D now. The shadows around the building, the shadows in the window, and as I said before, I am not in any way doing a proper correct drawing here. I'm not an architect. I'm an artist, and I'm enjoying playing around with some values here, darks and lights, just to see how that can bring out the painting. Look at that, what a difference. Now there's one more. This blue door has a shadow across the blue, so when that happens you just go over it with your shadow glaze, making sure it's dry already. I went slightly too far there because I went into the doorway, which isn't as dark as the door, so just take that off. That's it. Got little bits on there. Okay, just have a little look around the painting, see, come back out again so you can get the overall effect. Now it's capturing the sun, but there's one thing missing. Even the dark blue roof has got a shadow side, hasn't it? So with this one, going back to the colour I've just been using all over the building, but I'm going to add some more blue into it because it's on the roof and this roof is blue. I do not want to go too far down the route of green, then I've got a lovely blue roof, but I've kept my brush the same before I popped it through. So some of that yellow is just greyed that blue down. Then we do exactly the same as we did before. We add a second wash, and this is the point where you do need to make sure that your first wash is dry, like so. Am I going to soften it? Yes, I am, because there's no harsh line on that shadow. Does that look about right? Yes, it does. Use your intuition. If you think it looks right, it's right. You might come back tomorrow and think, oh no, it's wrong. That's fine as well. Welcome to the world of being an artist. A painting is only ever finished when you can't see anything else left to adjust. But sometimes it's best to just say it's finished and move on. Right, just one touch here that's not quite. And that, my dear friends, is me done. A lovely chapel stroke church in Pafos, Cyprus, using just two colours. You can do this, just break it down into simple sections like I did, layer it, dry it, layer it, dry it. Be more patient than I have been. If you're worried about getting this correct, then please do trace it. Tracing paper, trace down, whichever way works for you. There's nothing wrong with that, because the masters used to use similar effects to make their sketches into full-size paintings. So I hope that helped you. I really enjoyed that. Memories of lovely sunshine in Pafos, whereas outside at the moment it's not quite so good. How did you get on with that? I really enjoyed this painting. I haven't done a building for quite a while. I was taken with the building because of the colours, the blue, the beautiful blue. And I wasn't there on a summer's day, it was winter there, and they had quite a few storms as well, hence the grey sky we had. Isn't it amazing how something so 3D can appear on a flat piece of paper. That's what tonal values are all about, modelling a form to help things jump out. Also, warm colours sit forward, cool colours sit back, and it helps the picture to give the illusion that you're looking into a picture, which of course you're not. It's a complete myth. Painters are very clever, you know, we fool people all the time. Hope you enjoyed that. I really hope to see you on the next video. If you do have a go at this picture, please do send me a picture at jackienorfolkartists@gmail.com, and I'd love to see your pictures. I'm going to add some extra classes to my channel now, looking at other media. We touched on drawing in this one. If you'd like to see some drawings and how to draw things, please drop a comment below. Let me know what you'd like to see. Happy painting, everyone. Take care and bye for now from Dunnock Studio. See you on the next video. Bye for now. So you've stayed right till the end. Well, lucky you, because would you like the chance to win this painting? I'm more than happy to send this free of charge to most places in the world. Let's be reasonable. If you'd like a chance, please drop a comment below telling me the favourite colour you have in your palette. I will know that you watched till the end, and then I can pick a winner. Good luck, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.